On April 21st, 2016, a user logged onto the social media platform Reddit and decided to visit a very specific online community. This community was dedicated to the video game Call of Duty Black Ops. Normally, this forum was a place where gamers would share their high scores, talk about game strategies, post video clips of their best moments, or complain about various game bugs. But on this day, this particular user posted a question that had absolutely nothing to do with video games. His post began with a simple but incredibly bizarre question. He wrote, "Why would there be 30-ish Wi-Fi networks seemingly emanating from directly under a concrete pad?" The user went on to explain his living situation. He had recently spent a few months living on a semi-urban farm property located in Hawaii. It was a beautiful, somewhat remote area, surrounded by lush green hills, red volcanic dirt, and quiet landscapes. While he was living there, he began to notice a series of strange occurrences. At first, he did not want to reveal everything he had seen, thinking some of it might just be the result of living in a rural area. But there was one specific thing that stood out to him more than anything else. He noticed that his phone was constantly picking up between 25 and 30 different Wi-Fi networks. Now, if you live in a crowded apartment building in a major city, seeing 30 Wi-Fi networks on your phone is completely normal. Your neighbors all have their own routers, and their signals bounce through the walls. But this man was living on a quiet, semi-urban farm. There were very few homes nearby, and they were all spaced far apart. What made the situation even more bizarre was that every single one of these networks had the exact same signal strength. No matter where he stood on the property, the signal stayed the same, peaking at one specific spot, and that spot was a plain concrete pad on the ground, which had been poured to simply cover a patch of gravel and dirt. He decided to investigate. He downloaded a Wi-Fi Analyzer app on his phone, which is a tool that measures the exact strength and direction of wireless signals in real time. He began walking in slow, deliberate circles around the farm property, while keeping his eyes glued to the screen. As he walked further away from the concrete pad, the signal bars on his screen dropped. As he walked closer to the pad, the signals grew stronger and peaked. It was clear that all 30 networks were coming from directly underneath the concrete pad. But that was not the only weird thing. As he monitored the networks over several days, he noticed that their names, or SSIDs, were constantly changing. Every 5 minutes or so, the list of network names on his phone would completely refresh to entirely new random names. He could not connect to any of them because they were all password protected, and he could not find a way to bypass the security. Desperate for answers, he obtained a thermal imaging camera to see if there was any heat radiating from the ground. When he scanned the concrete pad with the camera, he saw a distinct, focused hotspot. One specific area of the concrete was significantly warmer than the rest of the pad. He decided to perform a test to see if there was actually an empty space or some kind of heat source beneath the concrete. He grabbed a hammer drill and a masonry bit and began drilling holes into the concrete. He drilled one hole directly on top of the hotspot, and then he drilled several other control holes in cooler areas of the pad. Once the holes were drilled, he filled them all with water. He watched closely as the water in the control holes just sat there, eventually overflowing onto the dry concrete. But when he poured water into the hole directly over the hotspot, the water drained instantly, disappearing into the ground below. Later that day, other Reddit users began asking him questions in the comments. They wanted to know if there was a power source nearby that could be running whatever was under the concrete. The user responded by saying, there were indeed power lines nearby, but they were completely disconnected from the city's main grid. Instead, the cables ran toward a steel frame building owned by an extremely wealthy neighbor. The user also mentioned that the entire mountain area had been used by the military during World War II. He looked up official military databases, which showed no active or historical military bases at his exact location, but he was convinced there were hidden underground facilities beneath his feet. To prove his story, he began uploading photos to the thread. He showed a multi-breaker electrical setup where the lower conduit ran directly under the asphalt and straight toward the hotspot on the concrete pad. He also posted a picture of a large bucket he found on the property, which he noted looked exactly like the chemical buckets used for body disposal in the television show Breaking Bad. Other users suggested he try to measure the thickness of the concrete. If there was a heat source underneath, the heat should have dissipated through a thin layer of concrete. He posted another photo showing that this specific concrete pad was actually twice as thick as the concrete surrounding it. It was incredibly hard and mixed with heavy river rocks, unlike the surrounding area, which was easy to drill through. He tried his best to drill deeper, managing to get about 2 feet down near the hot spot. He said the heat coming out of the hole was unbearable. He described it as feeling like the inside of a hot composting bin, yet there was no sign of any biological or microbial activity. The soil was dry, red volcanic dirt, which typically does not support that kind of intense biological heat. The user also shared other details about the property. He said the building nearby had been constructed by questionable contractors. He knew that large liquid storage tanks had recently been dug up and removed from the ground, meaning there was a massive amount of empty underground space. Additionally, a municipal storm drain near the property line had been replaced with a massive oversized drain, which he suspected could serve as an entrance to an underground tunnel system. He also witnessed a suspicious truck making late-night trips, carrying loads of broken, brand-new concrete taken from the trash bins of neighbors. Most intriguing of all, he managed to link his old boss's personal accounts to an eBay seller account named Che Bay. This eBay account had highly suspicious reviews and was known for selling faulty hard drives and broken electronics. People wondered why anyone would buy broken hard drives unless they were using them to hide encrypted data. Shortly after the Reddit user made this connection, the Che Bay eBay account suddenly went private. The user told his online followers that he was in a safe spot and that they would not get him easily. But then, the updates stopped and the threads went cold. Later on, some users claimed the original poster suffered from mental health issues. His former boss actually joined the thread to comment, claiming the user was highly paranoid and had once ripped his own ceiling fan down because he believed he was being watched. The boss claimed there was no secret underground facility and no connection to the eBay account. However, many people pointed out that nearly everything the user had claimed was backed up by photographic evidence. To this day, the true nature of the Hawaii concrete pad remains a mystery. Now let us fast forward to Tuesday, December 16th, 2025. A user posted a thread in the home maintenance subreddit that immediately caught the attention of the community. It was so unusual that the moderators deleted it within an hour, but before it was taken down, a watchful viewer managed to save the post and sent it to me a week later. The post read, "I have cut myself pretty badly in my rented apartment. Fortunately, everything's all right, but I don't really want to notify the owners of damage on the walls. What would I need to make this disappear?" Along with the text, the user posted a photo, but when you looked at the image, it did not look like a normal household accident. It showed a highly unusual blood splatter on the wall. If someone cuts their finger or hand, the blood usually drips down, or perhaps smudges if they wipe it. But this splatter was shaped in a way that suggested a violent, blunt impact. Right in the dead center of the thickest part of the blood, there was a noticeable chip in the plaster wall. This strongly implied that a physical object, or perhaps a person's head, had struck the wall with extreme force, causing the blood to spray outward. It did not look like a simple cut from a kitchen knife. As online sleuths began looking into the user's posting history, things got much darker. The user frequently posted in an alcoholism support group, admitting that he got heavily drunk at least 5 days a week. Even more concerning was a post he had made just a month prior. In that post, he explained that his girlfriend had cheated on him and left him. She had walked out of his life just days before the engagement ring he had ordered for her finally arrived in the mail. When a member of the Reddit Bureau of Investigation began looking into these details and shared their findings, the original poster immediately blocked them, despite never being contacted directly. He then deleted his account. Whether this was a tragic accident by a heartbroken man or a clumsy attempt to clean up a crime scene involving his ex-girlfriend remains entirely unknown. Next, we look at a story from 2016 involving a Reddit user named Random Girl to You. She lived in a very large historic house in a tiny quiet community of only about 400 people. In a town that small, everyone knows everyone, and people rarely lock their doors. She lived a very peaceful, routine-oriented life. She was highly meticulous about her home. She had beautiful ebony-stained hardwood floors, which she swept multiple times a day, because the dark wood showed even the slightest speck of dust or dirt. She knew every single inch of her floors. One afternoon, she was walking through her bedroom. In her room, there was a door that led directly outside to a small porch. As she walked toward the door, she stopped dead in her tracks. Sitting right there on the dark wood floor was a human tooth. She stared at it, completely frozen. She knew for a fact it had not been there an hour ago. She began frantically running her tongue along her own teeth, wondering if she had somehow lost a tooth without feeling it, or if she had hit her head and forgotten, but all of her teeth were perfectly intact. She went online and posted about the discovery. Other users immediately warned her that someone might be living in her house. She scoffed at the idea at first, but then she started thinking about other strange details. Items had been going missing. Random objects in her house would be slightly out of place. She had brushed these things off as her own forgetfulness, but now she was not so sure. She worked in law enforcement for the local Game and Fish Commission, so she had some survival and tactical training. She was a small woman, but she was brave. Instead of waiting for the police, she decided to investigate her own home. She walked to the hallway and looked up at the ceiling hatch that led to her attic. She noticed a faint, dark smudge on the trim of the hatch. She grabbed a chair, sat down directly beneath the opening, and just listened. She sat in total silence for a long time, waiting for any creak or rustle from above, but she heard nothing. Over the next few days, she decided to get a taller ladder and a high-powered flashlight. She climbed up and pushed the attic hatch open, shining the light into the darkness. She did not see anyone, but she saw plenty of evidence that someone had been there. There were 8 beer koozies, some of her own personal items that had gone missing, a pile of loose change, and a $20 bill. She immediately called the local sheriff, whom she knew personally because of the small town. The deputies arrived, dusted the attic for fingerprints, and collected the items. They told her that based on the dust patterns, someone had been coming and going from her attic for a very long time. But the creepiest part was that the intruder only came into the attic when she was home. When she was away, he was gone. This was not a homeless person looking for shelter. This was a dedicated stalker. Around this same time, she began receiving explicit, unsolicited photos on her phone from an unknown number. The sheriff's department kept her updated on the investigation, and eventually, they allowed her to look through the evidence locker containing the items recovered from her attic. What she saw turned her stomach. There were 2 large glass pickle jars filled with human semen. There were thousands of used tissues, dirty maroon socks, and moist towelettes scattered throughout the insulation. Most horrifying of all, she found a pile of her own clothes that had gone missing over a year ago, including her underwear. There were also bizarre, random items: a plastic butterfly, a wooden bobblehead turtle, and black and pink straps with Velcro on the ends. A few days later, the sheriff called her with an update. They had run the fingerprints and caught the man, but when they revealed his identity, her sense of relief turned to absolute horror. The man living in her attic, watching her sleep, and stealing her underwear was her 70-year-old neighbor. He was a highly respected member of the community, a church deacon, married to the same woman for decades.